Greetings, brothers. There are mountains that rise to meet the sun, and there are mountains that hold the sun captive within. Mount Deathfire is the latter. It does not sleep. It does not rest. It remembers. The Father's hammer once rang upon its bones, and every strike sank deep, awakening something older than the Salamanders themselves. I have seen it only from afar. Nocturne storms veiled its face, a crown of lightning crowning its black shoulders. Even from the fortress monastery, you can feel its heart beating beneath the crust of the world. Slow, patient, eternal. They say that when you dream in the shadow of Deathfire, the mountain dreams with you. It shows you what you fear to see. The faces of the lost, the sound of the forge falling silent, the faint echo of the Father's last breath. And in those dreams, some claim a figure walks through the flame. They call it the ghost of Mount Deathfire. It is no simple specter of smoke and ember. To some, it is Vulcan himself, walking the molten paths as warden of his sons. To others, it is a spirit older than man, a living echo of the world's birth. All I know is this: when the fire speaks, the wise listen. The tale begins long before my time, when the ash dunes were young, and the forged city of Hesiod still stood proud. A brother of our chapter, one whose name the records have burned away, returned from the mountains, alone. His armor was cracked open by heat, his flesh blackened as though he had stood inside a sundae. Yet he lived. He spoke of voices in the magma, of a presence that guided him away from the brink. He swore that within the flames he had seen a figure shaped like a man, wrought of light and shadow, hammer in hand. When the healers asked what words the apparition had spoken, the brother whispered, "It said, 'Forge again.'" Then he died. The chaplain sealed the story, calling it madness brought by fever and flame. But whispers spread. Forge serfs told of shapes moving in the volcanic glow, of molten footprints cooling to obsidian in the sand. Even the serfs who feared nothing but failure crossed themselves with soot before daring to approach the slopes again. So the legend grew, that in Deathfire's heart, something walked. Something that remembered us. Centuries later, after the Third War of Clyte Reach, a group of young salamanders swore to seek the truth. They went without sanction, zeal, and grief, driving them more than wisdom. I was a neophyte then, tending the monastery's lower forges, and I remember the silence that followed their departure. They were gone 40 days. On the 41st, the mountain roared. Geysers of molten rock split the horizon, ash blotted out the stars. We thought the volcano had claimed them, yet one returned. He carried no relic, no proof, only a shard of glassy stone fused to his gauntlet. He spoke little, his eyes reflecting fire that was not of this world. When pressed, he said the ghost had shown them a forge buried beneath the mountain, one that burned without fuel, tended by unseen hands. He said they had been told a single truth: the Father's work is never done. The shard he carried could not be cut, could not be cooled. Even in vacuum it glowed faintly, as though remembering a light it had once contained. We keep it still, sealed behind warded glass in the librarius, and it hums when storms gather over Deathfire. You must understand, brothers, that Nocturne is not like other worlds. Its core runs wild. Its orbit dances drunkenly about its sun. Its land is alive with change. The Promethean priests say that the planet itself is a living forge, shaping and reshaping the people who call it home. If that is true, then Mount Deathfire is the anvil. It was there that Vulcan tested his first weapons. There he communed with the Earth's heat. There he shaped the creed that became our soul. When he left, The mountain did not forget him. Every eruption, every tremor, every burst of lightning across its summit, they are its memories speaking. The ghost, if it exists, is the voice of those memories. It is what remains when devotion burns so long it carves itself into the world. Sometimes, during the season of storms, you can see lights moving through the ash clouds above the crater, green and gold, like the shimmer of plasma through obsidian glass. The serfs call it the Father's Lantern. The Forge priests call it reflection. I call it remembrance. There was a time when the mountain went silent. No tremors, no fire, no whisper of molten breath. The adepts feared a great quiescence, the death of Nocturne's heart. Then, one night, the forges of the fortress monastery flared without warning. Every brazier, every crucible, every ember roared to life. The flames burned the color of deep emerald, like the eyes of the Father himself. I was there. I heard the sound before the heat reached us. It was not the crackle of fire, it was the ringing of a hammer. Once, twice, thrice, 3 strokes, measured and perfect, echoing through the halls. No one struck it. No one dared move. The forge serfs fell to their knees. The chaplains whispered the ancient refrain, and we felt something within our gene seeds stir, as though awakened by a memory we had never lived. When the sound faded, the air was still and heavy. And far in the distance, Mount Deathfire began to burn again. From that night onward, the adepts recorded a constant pulse beneath the crust, a rhythm too deliberate to be natural. We called it the heartbeat of the hammer. Was it Vulcan? Was it the ghost? Or was it the mountain itself, remembering the rhythm of its maker? I have ceased to ask. Some questions are not meant to be answered only on it. It is said that, during the worst of the warp storms, when communication with the wider Imperium is severed, and the void itself howls, the Salamanders do not feel alone. In those hours, we hear voices, not in the mind, in the air itself. A low chant, like wind through hollow stone, threading through the corridors of the fortress. It grows louder near the forges, until even the flames seem to sway in rhythm. We call it the Ashen Choir. Some believe it is the echoes of our fallen brothers, their spirits carried in the smoke that never leaves Nocturne's skies. Others say it is the voice of the ghost, calling us back to our purpose when doubt gnaws at the edges of faith. I have heard it myself. Once, after the siege of Moribah, I was wounded, my armor shattered, my lungs full of ash. I lay by the forge, listening to its low song. The voices rose from the coals, hundreds, thousands, speaking as one. Endure, you are not alone. When I awoke, the forge was cold again, but the heat in my chest had not dimmed. That is the nature of the ghost. It does not come to terrify. It comes to remind, to shape us as we shape the metal, to keep us from forgetting that, even in death, the Father's sons still speak through flame. There was once a brother named Catheron, known among us as the Silent Anvil. He spoke little, forged much, and prayed only in the language of steel. One day he asked for leave to make the ascent to Mount Deathfire. Not in pride, but in sorrow. He had lost his bond brother to the claws of daemons, and felt unworthy to strike the hammer again. The Reclusium granted it. Weeks passed, then months. No sign of him returned. We prepared the rites to honor his passing, when one night the monastery shook with a thunder like none before. From the volcano's slope, a figure walked through the storm armor, scorched, cloak torn to ribbons, carrying a hammer that glowed with living flame. It was Catheron. He did not speak as we gathered, only placed the weapon upon the anvil. When the chaplains asked what he had found, he said only this: the mountain remembers the father, and the father remembers his sons. Then he died standing, as if the hammer itself had spent the last of his strength. That hammer rests still in the sanctum of his stand. Its runes flare only when the forge is used for works of mercy, never for destruction. We call it Ghostfire's gift. You may ask, brothers, why we tell these stories at all. Why give voice to myths when there are wars unending and duties unfulfilled? Because the Salamanders are not a legion of machines. We are flame given form, and flame remembers its source. The ghost of Mount Deathfire is not a phantom to be feared. It is the memory of purpose, walking still. It is the part of Vulcan that never left, bound to the molten veins of Nocturne. When we fight, when we forge, when we protect, that spirit burns through us. In every blow that spares the innocent, in every act of mercy amid the firestorm, we feel its guidance. Perhaps the ghost is not one being, but all of us together. The collected will of every salamander who ever lived, fused into a single enduring flame. If so, then the mountain does not haunt us. It houses us. The mountain has never stopped burning. Even when the storms blind the sky and the seas turn to glass, Mount Deathfire breathes. Its breath is the world's pulse, the promise that the Father's craft is not yet finished. I have stood upon its lower slopes, feeling the ground tremble like a great heart. The air is thick with the taste of iron and salt, of the sea drawn up by heat and cast down again as rain. I looked into the caldera and saw the flame moving, not as a river of molten stone, but as a living thing. It shifted, coiled, rose in the shape of a man wrought from fire. No voice reached my ears, yet words formed all the same, carried in the rhythm of the flame. The forge is eternal because you are. When I returned, my armor was scored by heat and my vision blurred, but my purpose burned clear. I understood then that the ghost was never meant to be proof of life or death. It was the sign that faith endures beyond both. The ghost of Mount Deathfire is not Vulcan returned, it is Vulcan remembered. The memory itself given shape and will. It stands as long as we do, and when the last of us falls, when the final forge cools, it will walk once more into the fire and wait for our return. Brothers, every tale of the ghost is a reflection of what we are, sparks of a greater flame. We are forged to guard the weak, to temper strength with mercy, to bear the heat without surrender. When the galaxy forgets compassion, we will remind it. When darkness claims the stars, we will light the way. That is the meaning of the ghost, the mountain, the Father's lingering hand. It is not a haunting, it is a homecoming. So let the storms rage, let the worlds burn and the forge tremble. We will still be there, hammer in hand, heart alight, eyes fixed on the glow of Mount Deathfire. And when the ember of our strength begins to fade, when we stand upon the edge of the last dawn, remember this: we are the fire that endures. We are the echo of the hammer. We are the Father's sons, shaped in flame, bound by mercy, reborn in duty. Until we meet again, brothers, when the forge of Nocturne calls our names and the ghost walks beside us in light. Until that day endure.